Old Time Gray here made me a pair of stands to hold my welding tools for all the stuff that I commonly use when I'm gas welding. I got a left hand and a right hand. The left hand holds my Henrob torch and has a little quiver for pieces of rod. The one on the right hand holds my pliers that I use all the time, any of my variety of strikers, and also has a quiver to hold welding rod. I'll show you how I made them. Okay, let's get started. Here's the materials. It's a Simpson strong tie T-shaped reinforcement thing for framing. A couple of scraps of condi that I slid open and opened up. I don't remember why, but I did. A little piece of 1/2 inch condi, maybe a plug, maybe a couple pieces of scrap, and a 1/4 inch pipe nipple that I had laying around. I want this thing to mount. I'm left-handed, so I want it to mount. I'm sitting over here. I want to mount it on the left-hand side of my weld table. So something like there. So I can put down a live torch, or I can use it as a torch holder in case I want to hand warm something or two-hand something and just to heat it. So somewhere here-ish. I'm thinking something like this. So here's the T bracket. Here's one of the pieces of condi, and here's the other with some kind of cup shape around the back, and then a cup around the barrel. I think I might tack this in place, knock off some of this galvanizing, tack this in place, and see if she's going to work. Alright, that looks like it's going to work, except I got to cut the bottom of the front little cradle out to clear the plug for the cutting attachment. So just chop the bottom of that out. Okay, I think this is it. So I'm going to tack this in place and then take the die grinder or the Dremel and knock off some of these sharp edges just to ease the ingress and egress a little bit. That works righteous. Easy in, easy out. I can hold something in front of the flame if I need to heat it. I want to be able to use the T-slots on my weld table to mount this if needs be, so I'm gonna just hang it in there with a wing nut here. Just use it taking advantage of the 3/8 hole that's already in the bracket. That also leaves me plenty of meat if I just want to clamp it down with a vice grip or something. But I also want to put a rod magazine on here, and I want to use the rod magazine as a little gusset. So to make sure there's room for that, I'll stand it off from let's call it the nut clearance for this wing nut, so I can easily get the wing nut on and off. And that means I got to fold this bracket up right about there. To prep the rod magazine, I'm going to bevel this edge and knock the corner off it so it fits nicely in there. So there it is. Nice, fits nice and tight. Let me tack that in place. Here it is clamped up to the table. Just need to do a little grinding and sanding. Make the ingress and egress a little smoother. Here it is from the other side, and here's our little rod magazine or rod quiver. I don't know about you, but if I got to put a piece of hot welding rod down, that's an easy way to do it. Plus, I'm always dealing, I think everybody is always dealing with short chunks of rod. Just a good place to hold them so they're not laying on your table cluttering everything up. Okay, I'm going to get this all finish welded and grinded and sanded and chop off some of the pieces that are unnecessary. There it is, all sanded and grinded and smoothed out and cleaned up. One good thing about things like this is all this welding of these tiny pieces. It's hard, but if you can weld little tiny pieces like this and keep control of your heat, you can weld anything. The little stuff's a lot harder because of the heat is a lot harder to manage. So yeah, it's welding a lot of little scraps and pieces of junk and little tight spots together, but it really does help. Just saw me cleaning the galvanizing off of this bracket. I found this in the scrap bin. So for the pliers, I'll just bend this into a hat shape and use it as a pocket or a loop to drop the pliers into. And I'll just bend that up in my hobby vise. Okay, there it is. Vice grip on. For the rod quiver, I dug deeper and I found this. I don't know what I was doing with that, but it's a piece of condi that's slightly bent. So I'm going to use it for the rod quiver, even though it isn't dead straight, it'll still work. So just going to whack a hunk out of here. There's the rod quiver. Just sanded it all up and knocked the galvanizing off it and prepped the end for welding. So that's ready to go. Same deal as the other side. I want to have the quiver act like a gusset and leave clearance for the wing nut. So I want to fold it right about there. So here's the pliers strap. I fused the tops of it just to make it a little more robust. Now I need to do a similar thing for my strikers. So I'm going to size something like that that will fit my strikers. I found this. It's a piece of 19 gauge that I found on the railroad tracks. Got my Sharpie a little too close to the welding torch. Hope it still works. Little trick here, if you want to bend something, but you don't on the vise, and you don't want a sharp corner, like my jaws have very sharp corners on them, just clamp in something with a radius and bend around that. And this is just a piece of rectangular tubing with a somewhat of a radius on the corner. And I'm just going to bend it over and you get a nice little radius. If you want consistent bends, I just set up a piece of rectangular tubing, a piece of scrap 16 gauge, clamped down the bracket or the strap to my weld table, checking to make sure the dimension's okay, and then just bend the ear over. That way, and I'll just flip it around and you'll get even sized pocket or strap on both sides. Tighten this up a little. There you go, nice even hat section. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm gonna clean it up, grind it, sand off everything, make it all nice and smooth and shiny. There they are, all sanded up and grinded up, and everything's nice and smooth, no sharp edges. I'm gonna throw a coat of paint on here. I know it's gonna burn off, but what the heck, they'll look good for a little while. So Rust-Oleum Brilliant Blue. Here they are, all painted up and installed. I've got them bolted into my T-slots on my little weld table, but I could just as easily have clamped them down. So here's all the stuff that I use typically when I'm gas welding, and I have two choices. One is either set it off someplace else, lay it on the bench where it gets in my way, or drop it on the floor. So what I can do now is I can put my Henrob in its holder over here. I can put any one of my strikers into the striker pocket. I can put my pliers in the pliers pocket, and then I can put rod in the rod quivers. Now I always got little shorty pieces of rod that you end up with. I can stick them there. So if I need to grab a quickie piece of rod and use it, or I got a long one, or I want to keep two types of rod, there you go. So now everything's organized, it's out of my way, and I can weld clean in this space. So there they are, all done. I'm going to leave this one here, and it's on to the next project. I'll see you there and then.